Hello. A little while ago I made a huge mistake in this garden. I'm Zorab and this is Byther Farm. And my problem is my decision of what to use for mulch. Now I have a bit of a love relationship with mulch. I absolutely love using it in the garden and I love what it does to the ground and how it protects the soil once you've used it. In our previous home I used a woven plastic membrane on the ground and then wood chippings, just like these, over the top, and that worked fine, except over time the weeds came up through the woven bits and the seeds landed on it and the roots went down through it and it kind of embedded itself into the plastic and it was a horrible mess. And after a few years I eventually lifted the weed suppressor membrane and just had the wood chip. Now in many ways that was absolutely great because we had an almost endless supply of wood chips from our friends Tim and Tom, who are tree surgeons, and they would just bring it by the trailer load and the lorry load and dump it in the front orchard. Which meant then those wood chips could be moved from those piles into the garden to use on pathways and even on raised beds. But here in Carmarthenshire I don't have the same access to those kind of resources, so the wood chips that are coming in I'm having to buy, and they're about £40 a load, which is a huge outlay for something I'm just walking on. But the good news is I don't just walk on these wood chippings. Pathways between the raised beds have got weed suppressing membrane on them, and I've covered that with wood chips. In fact, it's not just me, lots of my friends have helped pile the wood chips up onto these pathways. And after about 2 years, they have broken down. There's still some twigs, but most of it has broken down into a dark, rich, organic matter. And it's perfect for adding to the raised beds. And of course, once the wood chips are broken down and I've put them onto the beds, I then need to buy in more wood chips. There are other alternatives. I could use some paving slabs spaced out between them. I could use gravel or even crushed seashells. But I really like the feel. I like the natural look of having wood chip pathways. One of the very best ways that I know to prepare the ground for creating a new bed is to use a plastic sheeting over it to kill off the weeds underneath. And then I think you can see here it's doing a pretty good job of clearing this area of most of the weeds. And here is where the plastic has been reducing the growth of the grass. So the next step is then to put down a layer of cardboard, maybe 2 or 3 layers of cardboard thick, water it, make it really nice and wet, and then put a couple of inches, 5 centimetres or so of compost on top of that and plant into that compost. But what do you do if you don't have enough cardboard? So I am using some of this stuff, which is a heavy duty cornstarch membrane. It's good for about 3 years before it starts breaking down. It doesn't have any plastics in it, I'm told by the manufacturer, and it's made from cornstarch and chopped organic matter, possibly miscanthus. I might be making that up, but anyway, it doesn't have plastics in it. Hooray. When I started planting down here in the lower field, plants like this beautiful Japanese cherry. Isn't she lovely? I'll leave the name on the screen and I'll leave a link to where I bought it in the video description. I wanted to plant up this field with masses of flowers, and I thought probably the easiest way to do that was to lay down some weed suppressing membrane, cut holes in it and plant through that, and it would give the plants a year or two to settle in and start forming some ground cover, which in turn would reduce the number of weeds and the grasses in this field and start to create a kind of a mat, almost a bed of flowering plants. So I went online and I searched for biodegradable weed suppressing membrane. So I bought some biodegradable membrane and I used it, and it's like a very fine non-woven membrane, and it seemed to do the job just fine for a couple of months. And then it started falling apart into all these little pieces and kind of just disappearing into a puff of nothing. And all the dandelions and the weeds grew through. So I haven't been down here and done anything to this pretty soon after I put all these canes in, and they don't have toppers on them, so I'm not going to bend down too much. I kind of noticed something wasn't right. So I started looking a bit more deeply at what it was that I'd bought, and I'd bought some stuff called oxo-degradable. Well, it turns out that oxo-degradable has quite a specific meaning. It means that it will break down into very fine plastic particles, and it will keep on breaking down into finer and finer plastic particles, leaving my ground totally full of plastic, microplastic beads, microplastic particles, the very thing that I didn't want to happen. Now, I know we all make mistakes sometimes, so at some point very soon Mr. J and I are going to have to come through, remove all the bamboo canes, lift any plants that are still in here that we want to move elsewhere, and scrape up as much of that membrane as we can possibly get. So is this a case of greenwashing? I don't think the manufacturer has done anything wrong because it was clearly labelled oxo-degradable. But that membrane was listed in the kind of eco-environmentally friendly section of a website. And in my naivety, I just took their word for it. Are we being duped? And so often I say, don't take my word for it. Do your own research. And that's exactly what I should have done. I should have gone away and looked up what does oxo-degradable mean before I bought it. So I just want to give you a word of warning. Just because something is listed as environmentally friendly in an eco section of a website doesn't mean that it is. So I am going to go back to them and say, are they aware that a product they're selling as eco-friendly isn't necessarily so? And hopefully they will make an adjustment on their website. But it highlights to me how important it is that we as consumers do our homework. So I'm back to using cardboard and compost, and also the cornstarch membrane, and getting hold of enough cardboard and compost for all the beds in the food forest. Might take some time, but I'd rather do that than shove plastics into the ground. I'm really pleased to say that my new book, The Seasoned Gardener, is out now, and it can be ordered direct from my website at bytherfarm.com/books. It's available in bookstores and also at most online retailers. If you want to order it in America, I'm afraid you're going to have to wait a few more weeks while their copies are being shipped there, but they are on their way, and you can pre-order from chelseagreen.com and Amazon and other retail outlets. If you want a signed copy, you need to order it from my website, and I will post those books worldwide. Looking at the sheet mulch and the coverings that I use on the ground here has really made me think about my old garden. Now, as you know, I will pass comment on the weather, pretty much whatever it's doing. It's a sunny day, it's a bit breezy. It's seriously sub-zero. It's raining today. It's been a frost overnight. It is super windy. And despite having had quite a lot of wet weather recently, it feels really nice out here. It's quite windy. It's another glorious day here. Gosh, it's warm out here. And if you're fairly new to this channel, or if you just want a reminder I'll leave a link on the screen to a garden tour of our old garden, and if you click on that link, it'll take you straight through to that video.